stand stable. I feel able to turn the tables. I could do this. Just keep moving, keep your hands up, stupid. I feel lucid, a new viewing. I can see the end, I can see my future, I can view it. It's right there for the taking. Everything I've ever wanted, dreams are just waiting. I just gotta fight for it, willing to die for it, willing to like soreness.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000, it still sucks. This is Phil J. Price, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. I want to say thank you and welcome to all the new subscribers, all the new members. I want to say what's up to our mods. You guys are doing awesome as always. Thank you for really hanging in yesterday and being a big part of the reason why last night's live and podcast and interview was so successful. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for everybody who's tuned in. Thank you for the new subscribers. We just hit 52,000 subscribers. That's pretty amazing. I want to say thank you all. Couldn't do it without you guys. You guys are amazing. Appreciate it. And so today, what I wanted to do is kind of talk to you guys, answer your questions. I know yesterday, and we kind of have a rule here, guys. And for those that are new here, our rule is if we have a guest on the show, we're going to show that guest the utmost respect. And whether you agree with that person or not, if you have something negative to say, that's going to be blocked out. So yesterday's guest was Daniel Martell. So for people who were being quite negative or, really attacking him, you obviously got timed out. Now, tonight, I'm going to be asking the questions and we're going to be answering some questions and stuff like that. I welcome anybody's opinion. We don't have a guest outside of whoever decides to join the show. And so with that being said, if you think Daniel did something, or if you think Janie did something, or you think Malaya or somebody completely, let's talk about it. Let's go through the motions. Let's break it down one step at a time and have an adult dialogue. And what I mean by adult is nobody come on in here all hooting and hollering or any of those things, because I will block you at that point. And, let's keep it high level. I'll give you guys about 2 minutes, and then if we have nobody waiting, then, I'll let you go a little bit longer than the 2 minutes. But if we have people waiting in the background, then you'll get about 2 minutes to, whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether you're in the middle, whether you don't know, and you just kind of want to say hello, we'll go forward from there. And so without further ado, let me drop the link in the, I'm going to drop the link to join the show in the live chat. It has been pinned. And so if somebody does want to join, you're more than welcome to at this point. Now let me share this to the screen. There we go. That way, if somebody does call in, and I'm going to scoot on over a little bit, so that way, not too far blocked off. But that way, if somebody does call in, we can hear them. I can bring them on, etc. So, but until then, I'll answer some of y'all's questions and comments and things of that nature. Put a couple of stars so that I know that you're talking to me. And until we get somebody that comes in. In fact, we have somebody that is in already. I'm going to bring this person in. Oh, you need to connect. There you go. There you go. Let's see if this. All right. Astrology. You're on the line. How can I help you?
Hey, hold on. Let me turn that off. Sorry.
No big deal. No big deal. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Just, wanting to get everybody's feedback and thoughts and opinions on yesterday's interview. What were yours?
I thought that it was interesting because I have mapped the kids. And I'm the only astrologer that maps the way that I do. And I take the geometric angles at the time of the event, and then I map them on the Earth's terrain. And so I would be very interested to work the map with Daniel privately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would. I would. I've been doing this for many years. I investigate with the beautiful tool of astrology. We can use it in so many ways. And I thought it was a good interview. And I
Oh, thank
think
you.
that that was my first initial. There was somebody else that took them. And I think that she knows. I think that the focus has been on Daniel when it really should be on the mother. She should be
Mm.
the one that is doing the most advocating for her kids. We just don't see that. It's just the weirdest thing to me. Who has children, little kids that go missing, and they're not the number one advocate? I just don't get it.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I've never spoken with Malaya myself, so I've never, I can't give a true in-depth perspective of, how she feels or things of that nature. I know a lot of people looked at some of the interviews that she has had, and it's only been a few, and they'll dissect those things. And I understand why. But, it's only a couple of interviews, and the media interviews that she had, it did not necessarily seem like it was scripted, but it necessarily felt like it was like she had just gotten out of trying to connect some dots or being interrogated with law enforcement. So what I think happened was that she went in there and the law enforcement was asking her a bunch of different questions, like, when did you wake up? What time was it? What was the first thing you noticed? I mean, a bunch of different things. And then that's why when she gets out there and does her interview, she's like, I woke up, we didn't hear anything. They must have gone out the back door. They must have done this. They must have done that. And the reason why it feels like it's, to me at least, it feels like it's like that is because she had just probably within within a day or so, maybe even that day, probably gone into some kind of like, I don't want to say interrogation, but almost like a brainstorming of ideas of what possibly could have happened to the kids and what happened that morning so that they could piece it together. And that's what it sounded like to me. But I do agree that she left fairly early. And I believe she's been going to like different places and stuff like that, which doesn't necessarily mean anything nefarious. But I do understand the meaning, behind the suspicious behavior. What do you think about if she was involved though? How do you think she was involved?
Well, you don't search for what is. I mean, she appears to be a mother that doesn't think her kids are missing, because you would think that that's what we would see from her, and her behavior is just telling me everything that I need to know. As a
Right, but
mother, I would tilt the world to find my babies.
right, and I don't disagree with you there, but what do you think happened? Do you think she did something, or do you think an accident happened, or do you think she's part of an abduction?
Maybe I'm just a dreamer, and I'm just always keeping hope alive. But I do think that the kids are alive, and I think that it's possible that they are with a tribe somewhere.
Okay.
I think that she knows where they're at, and I think that they're alive. Otherwise,
I
I
hope
think
so.
we would see another behavior. Maybe I'm just, from what my point of view, the way that I investigate, I'm looking for them both deceased and alive. I'm open to whatever. I'm open to changing my mind. But the one thing that I cannot get out of it's evident. Her behavior is evident, and her behavior is very suspect to me. I don't like it. I think that a mother should tilt the world to find their kids. She's got two little kids and we don't see her begging and pleading and crying. Where are my babies? Like, where is
Right.
the love? Where is the mother that we want?
Right.
It's just like with, Sebastian Rogers' case, same thing. Where is the mother's plea to the public?
Right.
I would like to see that from her. And she is my main suspect.
Okay.
She
I mean,
knows where the kids
outside
are
of outside of the behavior aspect, let's try to narrow this down as far as like what we can deduce. So if they are alive, and I know you mentioned reservation, do you think she she orchestrated this with the reservation? The reservation?
I think it's possible.
Okay. And so if we
I
were to
do.
go
I think
down
it's
that,
possible.
all right, let's go down that road. Let's try to deduce it and see how it fits. So there would have had to have been some sort of meeting or a setup. At least, how many meetings do you think she would have had to have had with somebody at the reservation to plan and execute this elaborate abduction?
I don't think that it would have been that hard.
Okay.
It just depends on what her plea was to them. I don't know. I mean, I wish I had all the answers. It's just that there's certain, I think with the work that I do, it's possible.
Right.
It's
I mean,
possible.
law enforcement has her phone, which included her text messages. It included her, included a lot of different things. We do have another person coming in, so we're going to start the 2-minute clock now.
Okay.
But they do
I
have.
appreciate you just, letting me come in and
Oh, of course. I
saying
enjoy
what
this.
I think. I'm open to working with Daniel. He can totally reach out to me, and it can be private. It can be a private working of the map.
Yeah, if you want, email me and I'll send him that email address, your contact information, and if he wants to get in touch with you, he can. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But so for me,
Okay. Cool.
If it was, Malaya, and law enforcement has her phone, law enforcement has her locations, they have her text messages, they have everything that has to do with that phone, which would include, probably some, where she's been at and things of that nature. And my thoughts are that some of those things would have to be missing, and some of those things would have to be replaced or deleted. That would take some sort of planning, in my opinion, to go through that sort of effort. Now, if they would have to have met a few times, like, all right, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do, and then, where are the kids going to go? They would have had to have aligned something. Here's where the kids are going to go. This is who we have. We have this house or these people that are going to watch the kids for a little while. We have this going on over here. This is where they're going to go after the fact. So I would have assumed that there would have been some sort of detailed planning in this. And then the question for me is, why? Like, it's not like Daniel's the biological father where he has some sort of custodial rights. If she wanted to go to the reservation and say, hey, I want my kids to go to you. Go ahead.
Can I say something? Okay, yes. So as a mother, I have been with men that just kind of give me the ick. Me and my daughter, we call it the ick. Okay, we just get the ick. And she had been feeling this. If she had been feeling a certain way for a while, she could have conjured up a plan to get those kids out of there. And I don't know. I hope that would be the best case scenario, right? Is that she was getting the ick. There was some weird shit. There was some stuff going on, and she just didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there.
I mean, I just don't understand why it would take an elaborate abduction for that to have happened. I mean, if I was the reservation and Malaya comes to me saying, I want to get out of this relationship with Daniel, or I can't handle the kids and I want somebody else to take care of them, I would say, all right, you're the mother. The father hasn't been in the picture for a while. We have some documents that you can sign over your rights for him. Or you can sign over waivers. You can sign over temporary custody. You can sign over a lot of things. It's just, I don't know that if I'm the reservation that I'm going to say, you know what, let's go do this elaborate hoax abduction. We'll not say anything to anybody. And then just hope that the RCMP doesn't figure this out when they go through your phones or any of those things, and continually waste their money because RCMP's out there, going through these exhaustive searches. And so I get 100% why everybody is looking at her and say, hey, her actions aren't there. I just don't see the evidence that connects to it. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
the evidence is her behavior. That's the way that I look at it. The evidence is in her behavior. Her behavior is telling me all I need to know. She's either one, guilty of doing something horrible to the kids, or she has hid them out.
It's a possibility.
You know,
Well, I want to say, oh, go ahead.
maybe the reservation, maybe they're not in, I don't know. I think, people are saying, well, it's illegal to do this. Well, it's illegal to do everything that she's done.
Right.
She's not showing any remorse, any sadness, any plea to the public. I want to see her begging for us to help her find her kids. All in those woods. I mean, where is she searching for them? What is she doing? The last that I saw, it could be true, it may not be, but she was on the beach. I mean, living it up, living her best life. Her kids are missing. Her behavior is the most suspect to me. She is the bio mom. Where is she? Why is she doing nothing to find these kids? We are doing more than she is. It's disgusting. I don't like it. I think she is just, I mean, everybody's focused on Daniel. Where is the mother?
No, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I think, it's,
I'm going to give other people,
suspicious.
I'm going to give other people time to come up here. And thank you so much for having me up on your panel. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. You have a great one. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye.
And next we have two in the box. We have Astro by Lauren, and then Sarah, I'll bring you up here in a little bit. Let me see how Astro by Lauren is doing. Astro, how are you doing tonight? In fact, I think she actually just came in. The Astro by Lauren.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Astro by Lauren, you're going to need to go on to, I'm going to pull you out real quick. And I'm going to put it in the private chat, what you need to do. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, Daniel.
Okay, I'll put it in the private chat.
Okay, so everyone can hear me, but I can't hear you speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. But
here, I'm going to log out and then log back in. Should I log?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Hang on.
All right. While she does that, I'm going to bring Sarah. Sarah, you're on the line. How's it going? You're muted,
Hi,
Sarah.
can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Hi. Thanks for letting me chat. So I just wanted to make a couple comments on the last caller before I add some more comments. I mean, I was very suspicious as well of the mother at first. Same thing, thinking, I'm a mother as well, and thinking what I would do in that situation. But then I got to thinking, A, you never know what you're going to do in that situation until you're in that situation. And B, there was a comment about how she's living it up on the beach and everything. Well, I think, has there been reports of her living it up on the beach, or was there one picture of her going to the beach?
I have heard. See, that's just the thing. That's all I've heard too, is that she was going to the beach. I think there was some audio, and the audio, I actually heard this audio myself as well. And this audio was from, I believe it was either Haley or Hayden, one of the two, one of the persons that found the blanket, and they were talking about how Malaya was acting suspicious, going to the beach, getting dressed up, things like that. Now, to be 110% honest with you, now that I think about it, it was an audio, so I've never heard Haley or Hayden talk, so it may not even have been them. But it seemed legit. I trust the source that I got it from. But that's what they were saying. And I had even told this with Daniel, because Daniel had suspected that, and he had wanted either one of them to, or both, to take a lie detector test, because they're the ones that found the blanket. And I was like, hey, if they planted the blanket for Malaya, why are they all of a sudden being suspicious of her behavior? They would have, if they planted it, they would have known that there was something odd going on, because they're planting a blanket for her. Mm-hmm. Why all of a sudden be talking this way? So I'm a little bit hesitant about those two things.
Yeah. As far as, I'm not necessarily sticking up for her or believe that she's completely innocent in all this. I'm still undecided. But, you know, for her not to go on camera in public, I mean, on the other hand, you see some people whose kids are missing who go on camera who are actually guilty. So, you
That's
know,
true.
going on camera does not necessarily mean that you have nothing to hide. But overall, I think my belief is that they were somehow abducted, picked up. And yeah, I feel because the area is such a dead zone as far as cell phone coverage and everything, you know, I think someone could have driven in a car that doesn't have GPS, an older vehicle. Maybe they don't have a cell phone, you know, they're completely untraceable. And I feel that the kids maybe went out to the road, were picked up, and either, you know, they could have even been dropped off somewhere in the woods and then got lost in the woods. Like, but yeah, I think it's an abduction.
You know, I don't rule out an abduction. Now, in the manner that you mentioned, somebody who has an old car with no GPS, no cell phone, and then just so happens to be passing by in this rural area when the kids are out there. I think that the possibilities are very slim. Now, the fact that it is a dead zone could work in their favor. And the reason why I say their favor and whose favor that is law enforcement. And the reason being is because it's between where Janie's house is, and then there's a mailbox, and that's where the service. In between there, it's a specific area because it's in a valley, and so if it was an abduction, we're looking at a crime of opportunity, most likely, as you mentioned, somebody that walked, you know, saw them out in the middle of the street or walked in the front driveway. Maybe they weren't in the street, maybe they were just in the driveway, and somebody pulled up, and you know, I think that it'd be a little bit easier to find a cell phone perhaps that's blinking in and out of service because they're in that area. Now, you know, for everything else to align, you know, a child predator in a old vehicle without a cell phone at the right time at the right place, the possibility of that is very slim. But I mean, it's still there. It's still possible that could have happened. To me, though, I think we're looking for somebody who, if they did abduct the kids, it would be very difficult to locate them through those means, whether it's your cell phone and stuff. And I don't necessarily think that could be a person who doesn't have a phone, but a person who wouldn't be a stranger for the area, you know, a neighbor of some sort.
Yeah, true. I kind of think that too. As far as the blanket, I was wondering if maybe, was this like a loved blanket for the kids or for Lily? Because what if Lily herself took it from the garbage, saw that it had been thrown away, and I don't know, maybe somehow saw it in the garbage and grabbed it. I know sometimes when I've thrown away old things from my kids, they see it in the garbage and they want it back.
Right.
And you know,
the garbage bin was kind of big. I don't foresee them able to get in and out of it that way. I do. So Daniel says that the camera didn't pick it up. Now, does that mean that it wasn't there, or does that just mean that where the camera was positioned, it just didn't pick it up? You know, it was out of the view, or whatever the case may be. I find it unlikely if it went both ways, because that's a long straight road. So you should be able to see it going towards that direction, the pink blanket in the tree. It wasn't that big. It was 1 foot by 3 foot. So It was a smaller portion of the blanket. And he told me that the blanket had been in the garbage, and the garbage had been in the bin for over a week. So apparently the garbage, I think, arrives every 2 weeks. It was about to get picked up on that Monday, and that specific piece of garbage had been in the trash for over a week.
And I just have one other comment. I don't know if that area is like my area here, but every spring we have what's called Junk Week, and you can put extra garbage out and household items for, you know, your local garbage organization to pick them up rather than going to the dump. And I noticed in that their junk week was the following week after the kids got missing. So if it's anything like my area, we have people who kind of go around to everyone's driveways to see if there's anything worth keeping because they have it set out for junk week. So I think that could, account for somebody in the area for no other reason than to like scope out people's junk. Just an idea.
It's possible. I thought that, see, there's a guy that lives in the area. And I haven't named him because I have no evidence outside of his history and possible behaviors of a person that could have, my experience in law enforcement dealing with some folks. And so there's a guy that lives in the area who was a criminal, a professional thief, apparently. And he was a professional criminal. All he did was steal. He and I believe another man, I think it's his brother, maybe another relative of his, actually were forced out of a town because of the amount of stuff that they were stealing. And I was able to locate some news reports referencing his arrests. And his arrests were for everything for drug possession to not robbery, burglary, and violence. Yeah, he had a violent something violent in his past as well. And so, this guy, I believe, had done some time, and he lives fairly close. Now, from what I understand is that the command center was near his residence, and he wasn't too fond for law enforcement being on his property or near his property. And this guy, if he is a thief because he's supporting a habit, I have not, in my experience dealing with persons who are thieves dealing with a habit, they're not, you'll find them going through the trash looking for things they can either fix, clean, or whatever they can sell and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was a situation. If somebody grabbed, the trash bin, felt something like fabric, tore it to see what was in it. If it was clothes they could wash or something, put their hand in there, pull out a piece of the blanket. I know a lot of people get tripped up on thinking that for some reason that the person who tore the blanket tore the garbage, knew exactly what was inside. I don't understand where they are connecting that dot, that they had to have known. I think it was more so by happenstance if somebody did do that, because I still think there's a possibility that an animal could have done it and it just, naturally found its way out there. I do think it's a bit odd that it is not too far away from the boot prints.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I appreciate you joining. You have a great one.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Now we got Astro by Lauren. Astro, can you hear us this time?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How's it going?
Excellent. Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to be on here. I like talking to a lot of different people, a lot of different ideas. It's great. What are your thoughts?
Excellent. So I'll try to be quick because I know we have 2 minutes. So I was the astrologer that was on Sunny's channel. It's a Crime and Shame early on, like in May and in June. And so I did a lot of analysis on the case. And if anybody remembers me from then, just know that I feel exactly now how I felt back then. And I am with the first astrology caller, Astrology for Mystics, I think it was. Malaya is my number one suspect. But the two things that I did want to add to the conversation in terms of the questions that you're asking is one reason why what I think her motivation was is that there's a historical, she told Belinda that she wanted to protect Meadow from CPS. And I believe that she wanted to leave Daniel and wanted to protect her other two, Jack and Lily, from CPS. And that is why I think that she disappeared her own kids. Do I think that they're still alive? I really don't know. I feel like if they were, they would have shown their faces by now. But I do think initially that is her reason for hiding her own children, not to keep away from Daniel, but because she wanted to leave Daniel, had these 3 kids, and thought that was the best thing to do for those 2. And go ahead.
Did you not? So does she not think that Meadow would be taken by CPS given the fact that she was missing children?
I think that she did not think that far. I think she panicked when she called 911. I'm not 911, whatever it is in Canada. I think that was never in the plan, and no, it was not the smartest plan. And there are other ways to do it, but
And who do you think helped her?
Oh, her family, absolutely her family. And I don't know. I just want to say that there's a historical precedence for some would say hiding children, but keeping children safe amongst the First Nations people there across the different provinces. So there's just a historical precedents that we don't necessarily understand. So who do I think is helping her? Her family, absolutely her family, whether it's her mom, whether it's her cousins, whether it's her dad's family, it could be both. But that entire family, absolutely. I mean, I respect that Cindy wants to keep her job, but Cindy, that's another one. She's the grandmother. Like, look at how Belinda, has presented herself publicly, and look at how Cindy has, and Cindy has not at all.
Right.
So that is what I think, and I do think it has to do with her children possibly being taken from CPS and wanting to leave Daniel at the same time. That is really what I think about it.
Interesting.
There was one more thing I'm trying to think. I know I was trying to be so quick about it, but I wanted to point out was because historical precedence. There's a reason why.
So, but all righty. So if Malay is doing this, and so she plans this out with Cindy. You think this plan goes on when she's doing her what do you call it, the laundry and stuff like that while Daniel's outside?
I think that's very possible as well. I mean, if Daniel's in the car for 2 hours and then she's away for 2 hours with Meadow, then absolutely. And the other thing is that her family has a long history of involvement with law enforcement. Okay, and this is like before the digital age,
Right.
And so these are people that do know how to stay off the phone, in my opinion.
So how do you think Malaya alerted them that the coast was clear to come get the kids?
I mean, it could have been anything. There are different. I know that you can definitely track, like you always say about the digital footprint and who's logged onto the Wi-Fi and that kind of thing. But there are all kinds of apps that I know from working with teenagers that encrypt from end to end, and different things that people use who are drug dealers and things like that are not necessarily as detectable as as WhatsApp, iMessage, and all of that.
I can tell you that they're more. Yeah, and I can tell you they're more detectable than they're not. A lot of people get
you're
this.
100% ex law enforcement, so I know you can tell me that.
Yeah. No, that's more detectable, but there would have had to have been some sort of notification. Now she handed over her phone, right? And they went through all the text messaging, GPS location, who she called, who she didn't call. They were in a dead zone. Like, even if, and it's not like she got up and like moved the blinds or anything, because even Daniel said that he could not say without a shadow of a doubt that she got out of bed, and that more likely it didn't, because when he woke up, Meadow was still asleep on top of her arm, and that she was a light sleeper, that if she would have moved her, that she would have woken up.
Right. I see. But let me ask you, Daniel, I mean, before cell phones, people did meet at certain times. And I mean, if she had made a verbal plan, and said this time, that at 5:30, whatever, 5:45,
it was after 9 a.m. I mean,
that way.
At 9 a.m. in the morning, I mean, you're running into a couple of possibilities. Daniel could be awake at that point. So how did she notify whoever was assisting her that the coast was clear?
I cannot answer that question, and I don't even know that she necessarily notified them. I mean, the way that like I said, it could have just been a plan that was made beforehand. You've been over the timeline so many times, and I have been listening to everybody. Different shows, and so everyone's in and out of sleep. Everyone, like it is a very short window of time, and I know the argument has been made, like, how could she, how could it have happened in such a short window of time? But I just think the fact is, like, we don't know exactly what the timeline is, so I don't know how they pulled it off.
I mean, there's a pretty good indication. So Janie says that at 8:48 that she has a phone call with her brother, and she has documentation of that phone call at 8:48. And at 10 o'clock is when 911 is called. So there's your time frame, 8:48
Yeah,
to 10 o'clock. That's about an hour
hour
and 12 minutes that you have. And I mean, it's in the morning, but it's not early morning. It's not 6 o'clock in the morning. It's not 4 o'clock in the morning when you would expect Daniel to be asleep. Like, it'd be one thing if she said, hey, come at 5:30 in the morning, because he's going to be crashed out and he won't even know anything happened. 9:30. That's a bit different. I mean, I think, and this is just my opinion, that if you're going to be, and they have eluded the RCMP. So Malaya and her mom and dad, our mom and stepdad, have, whatever it is that they've done, have eluded the investigation into their phones, eluded the lie detector test, because each one of them took one.
Right.
It's pretty stacked up. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying, and I do understand that I hear when you say that they confirm each other's stories, and even though they don't get along, they all heard them at the same time, and this and whatnot. But I mean, if all the questions were in fact about the death of the children, then it is possible they could have passed a lie detector. It's possible that maybe Cindy, even though Cindy's number one on my suspect list along with Malaya, but I know that that's a very unpopular opinion. So I mean, I don't have any strong facts for that. But it could have been other family members. It could have been the other side of Malaya's family. It could have been the Cheryl, Miss, like, send the funds to me, her beach friend. It could have been her other lying half sister Haley or whatever. I mean, in my opinion, allegedly. So I mean, it could have not been them. But if it has to do with the death, if the children did not die at their hands, and I hate to be morbid, I mean, I don't have a lot of hope that the children are living now, to be honest with you. So it's not that but I just think initially I think that Malaya had every hand in it, and had a lot of help, because she doesn't seem, as you would say, like a criminal mastermind. Nor is Daniel. And I'm not a Daniel fan, by the way. People think that if you don't think Daniel's guilty, you're a Daniel fan, but like, Daniel's pretty ridiculous. But like I said on It's a Crime You Say, I just don't believe that he is guilty of anything in this case.
Yeah, to me, and I've said this a few times, because a lot of people say, do you believe them or don't believe them? It's not what I believe, if I believe what they're saying or not. I don't follow 100% what people say.
Right.
I listen to what they say, and I listen to, because there's always his side, her side, and then somewhere in the middle is the truth, right? What I do follow is law enforcement, because you and I may not know everything in this case, right? I mean, obviously, there's no way we could, but law enforcement does. And so if law enforcement is coming out here and pointing one direction, or doing something or not doing something, that is typically a hint of what we think that you're doing. And so right now, if they believed, for instance, that the kids were on the reservation, or they were being held up somewhere else, why would they bring in cadaver dogs from different parts of the country?
Right. I mean, I'm an astrologer, a tarot reader, and a conspiracy theorist. So I'm probably the wrong person to answer that question. I mean, for any reason, just to so the public knows, that at least we brought the cadaver dogs out. For as far as I'm concerned, it could be anything, but nothing based in as much fact as you would consider. As you would consider, and I already know that. You know what I mean? But I understand what you're saying is, like, what you do believe in watching the behavior of law enforcement in conjunction with what we're hearing and what we're seeing from, some of the people involved. And I understand that it does look like Malaya is cleared. I still feel the way that I feel. I just wanted to offer like another perspective, because I know they asked, like, well, what is the motive? And I do honestly think she did say to Belinda in one of those text messages, she's trying to protect Meadow from CPS. And I just feel like, that she was trying to protect Jack and Lily from CPS. Unpopular opinion, unfounded, and probably with a lot of cognitive dissonance, but
Yeah.
that is, that's how I feel about it.
Well, why not? Why not also include Meadow in the disappearance then?
Well, the reason to not include Meadow in the disappearance is that Jack and Lilly were the ones they were under investigation for. Now, I don't know enough about CPS to know, like, if they do take the 2, would they also take the 3? But my thought is Jack and Lilly are the ones going to school, getting reported, for whatever, whatever is going on, whether it's their behavior or black eyes or, whatever. All we know is that CPS was involved for one reason or another, and it just involved us too. But she wanted to leave, and I do believe that she didn't feel that she could do it by herself, and that she felt they could have a better and safer and different life. I think the initial thought was to do that. I think that it went terribly awry. That's
right. No, and I don't disagree that, but plans that go terribly awry and law enforcement involvement and cooperation to the level that Malaya and Daniel have cooperated with don't usually equal out to a unsolved crime. Or
right,
in this scenario here, a situation where RCMP can't even consider this a crime. They've come out and said that there's not been a criminal offense that has occurred. And I know a lot of people have said, well, not yet, not this, not that. We need to break that down, because a lot of people have accused, like Daniel, for instance, for doing drugs or for doing this or for doing that.
Right.
But I'll remind people, when they say there's not a criminal offense that has occurred here to this point, that would also include drug activity. I would remind folks of, are you familiar with the Delphi case?
A little bit, yes. You said that. And I've heard about, like, the one person that was misidentified and he was lying because he was
right. Well, there's more to that. There was also Keegan Klein, and there was Ron Logan.
Okay.
Now, Keegan Klein was a child predator, and Libby was a victim of 2 different crimes. She was a victim of the murder that happened, and her and Abby were a part of, and she was also a victim of a child predator from Keegan Klein.
Oh.
Now, they looked at him. He had created a fake profile, Anthony Schatz, and they wanted him. They wanted him bad. They couldn't ever pin it on him because obviously Richard Allen is the person that committed that crime.
Yeah.
They found other acts that he committed. He had assaulted, or he had talked other little girls into sending him pictures of themselves, and they arrested him. Ron Logan is a guy that they wanted. They wanted him bad too, because he created an alibi.
Okay.
And what his alibi was actually for, he created an alibi before the bodies were discovered. So it was weird. And a lot of people were like, oh, bodies were found on his property, created a fake alibi, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh.
What ended up happening was he was on parole for a drinking and driving related offense. And at the time of the disappearance and the murder of the 2 girls, he was out at a bar drinking, violating his parole. He ended up serving 4 years in prison, I believe, because of that. Right. And so when they had their eyes on somebody that they suspected, which I strongly suspect that they suspected Daniel and Malaya right off the bat.
Right.
And you find something like drugs or anything that you can hold them and hold it over their head so that you can use them in interrogation, you're going to go down those roads and those avenues as a tactic. And I find that the fact that they didn't do that is a big indication that there was no drugs involved. There was none of that stuff, because then they would have been arrested for it. They would have been, pressured. They would have been grilled, the whole 9 yards. You know what I mean?
Very quickly. Yeah, I understand. I do want to add one more thing. I understand what you're saying. You're saying they were the number one suspects for the fact that they were the parents. And yeah, it would not.
Well, I mean, look at everything that they did to them. They took their phones. They looked at their banking statements. They looked at their locations. They looked at their text messages. They downloaded their phones. They had in possession their phones for over a week and handed them burner or temporary phones that were probably bugged. They followed them. They interrogated Daniel for 4 hours, at least in one scenario. 100% they thought he was a suspect. That's not how you treat a witness.
Right. Yeah, like, oh, we're buddies, we're friends, we're best friends.
Exactly. Then 100% he was a suspect in the beginning.
Right, not a thing. Yeah, I mean, the only other conspiracy theorist thing I can offer is that if she did disappear her own kids, then that is not illegal. And it could be like a political thing where they can't go after, what happened because of the politics between the reserves and the Canadian government.
Yeah, then why would the Canadian government bring in the
bringing
cadaver
the
dogs?
dogs, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that, which gets back to like, you'd have to live in conspiracy land with me to even be able to justify that. So I'm here with you. I get it. You know, like I get it. I could say, well, yeah, because it's a show, because they don't want them, to know about the political strains, and and all this. But
Yeah.
I do understand it is a waste of time and resources if they didn't truly believe that the cadaver dogs were possibly necessary, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's either that or it's either they believe them to be in there, or this is one of their last options, which means that everything else is checked out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I still believe what I believe, but I understand the logic of what is probably logically happening, if that makes sense. So
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, everybody no, trust me, I get it. I gravitate to some of the, the thoughts that are out there. Some say call them conspiracies. I get it. They can be entertaining to a certain extent, but once we start to break them down like one piece at a time, like, all right, so if this happened, what would have had to have happened? Some of them don't fit properly the way we thought they would. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. But I do think we can agree on the fact that, well, I'm not trying to defend Daniel, but I do think that a lot of the accusations towards Daniel are unfounded based off of the actions of law enforcement. I feel so.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel, he's, to me, his behavior and his actions aren't indicating of somebody who's done something.
Right.
It would be different if they lawyered up, or they refused to hand over their phones, or they went in hiding, or they took off, or refused the lie detector test. Like, those are all the red flags. Like, oh, they refuse this, they refuse that, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that.
Right.
I just don't see that here. And as much as I see the behavior aspect, because you got to put it this way. I mean, Daniel is so suspicious of Malaya. He was literally in bed with her, but because of the way she's acted, he's that suspicious of the behavior after the fact. So, I mean, if he's that suspicious and he was in bed laying next to her, and even when I was talking to him and kind of breaking down the scenario of how it's unlikely that she got out of bed without waking up either himself or Meadow, he's still, very suspicious of her. And, I get it.
Fair. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
But I get it. I get why. I mean, he doesn't, he just woke up and the kids were gone, and somebody's acting in a manner that you probably aren't expecting. And not only that, she left him there.
She sure did. She hightailed out of there so quick. I mean, yeah. So people are like, oh, he's constantly pointing fingers at Malaya. Well, I'm like, well, maybe Malaya's just guilty, but also that's just me. But I understand, like, we can't imagine how it must have felt to be Daniel in that situation.
Either one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Malaya. You're right. So, yes. Well, thank you for giving me a chance to give my opinion, and I appreciate your perspective. And thanks for getting that interview with Daniel. I think that's great. It's important.
Thank you. I appreciate you for joining, and thank you for coming back on. It was a pleasure talking to you. You have a good one.
Same, you too. Bye.
All right. If anybody else wants to join, we got nobody in the queue. Just hit the it's pinned in the comment section. So all you got to do is hit the link, and it'll send you in. As you can see, nobody's face comes on board. It's just your voice, and give you some time and conversate. If you agree with me, come on up. We'll talk about it. You don't have to disagree with me to join the live stream. You can agree with me, but if you disagree with me, by all means, come on board. As long as you're respectful and you're not coming up here and, trying to be Billy bad, I don't want to curse. If you're trying not to be just, some kind of jerk, you're more than welcome to come on board. I know a lot of people were upset saying that their opinions or their voices weren't heard. Let's talk. I'm more than happy to. All I ask is to keep it 100. Let's keep it high level. Let's keep it professional. Let's have a discussion without having to get upset. Nobody needs to get mad. You know what I'm saying? What we're doing is we're trying to, put some awareness for these two little kids that are missing, and and hopefully also not create victims out of this situation. And what I mean by that is, like in the Brian Koberger case, anybody that popped up was automatically assumed to be the killer, and their life was turned upside down. You know, I came out in a in a special because I was able to identify somebody who had their wrists in zip ties, and I figured out who it was, and I brought it up to everybody's attention, and you know, it didn't bode well for that guy. And I you know, I wasn't the only one, obviously, but you know, he was like, hey, they figured out who I was, and you know, I felt horrible for putting his, you know, information out there like that. And I was like, I ain't gonna do that. Even with this one guy, I'm like, Connor's asking me for my theory here, and I'm gonna give you guys two. I'm gonna give you what I think most likely happened, and then a possible secondary, maybe even leading up to a possible 50-50 possibility here, because the cadaver dogs didn't find anything. Not necessarily saying the cadaver dogs going out there are going to be batting 100 and they're going to find everything. You know what I mean? I can't say that, but what I can say is that I feel strongly that the kids probably wandered off. You know, Malaya, Janie, and Daniel kind of all, you know, corroborate each other, meaning that Daniel saw Lilly, so there's proof of life there from one person. Malaya heard them, and Janie also heard them after that, possibly as they were outside. So, you know, they all kind of corroborate each other, and you know, it'd be, to me, it's almost like if one of them is involved, most likely all of them are involved. I find it very unlikely that Daniel could have pulled something off and Janie and Malaya not know about it. And in any which order you want to say it, Malaya pulls something off and Daniel and Janie not know about it, or Janie pulls something off and Daniel and Malaya not know anything about it. So I struggle with that. Now, there's a blanket that is a little bit ways down the road. The backpack that the kids were using, or that Lilly had, were for when she went on trips. Now, when I was talking to Janie a couple weeks ago, she had mentioned that there had been some kids that go to that to her house. I think they're her other grandkids, and they do play in the fort, and they did take snacks, and they would go up there and stuff like that. And sometimes Jack and Lilly would, you know, they would all go up there. You know, kids are impressionable. If they're seeing their, you know, step brother and sister or half brother and sisters, you know, going step brother and sister out there playing in the fort and stuff like that, they're 4 and 6 years old. I don't put it past them to go out there or plan something to go out there and play and do something that they saw the older kids do. And I think there's a possibility that maybe they wandered off and got lost and went a lot further than people think, and ended up on that pipeline. Now, one of the things that even Daniel, when I was doing the interview and he was talking about the boot prints, and I said, if they're planted, because he was like, how could they get up there? You know, there's mud, the terrain is up, how, all this other stuff, there's marsh. And I was like, well, how does somebody plant them without leaving their own footprints? And he's like, well, yeah, you're right. And I was like, exactly, there's no way. Now, could there have been some kids out there? Because he said that law enforcement doesn't know for a fact if they're Lilly and Jack's footprints. They don't know. They think it's a possibility. And so, to me, you know, I see you, Barbara. I'll pull you up here in a second. To me, you know, you don't get way out there and stuff like that, and without having some sort of evidence of that, footprints, tire marks, something. Now, I do know there were searchers and things of that in the area, but I strongly suspect they wandered off and got a little bit further than people thought. Now, I do leave a possibility there for somebody in the neighborhood to have picked them up if they wandered off or if they were in the driveway, you know. And there's a guy who was a thief, and apparently the driveway for Daniel's house, they had some things in the driveway. They had you know, I think like a washer or dryer or some sort of appliance out there, and some other things in the driveway at the time of the disappearance. You know, if you have a thief out there, 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning, when people are at work and things of that nature, Daniel and Malaya and everybody was asleep. So from the outside, it might look like nobody's home. Maybe they go up there. I don't put it past the thief that is supporting a habit to go through the trash. Right. And so maybe perhaps that's where the blanket comes into play. And what I'm thinking, and this is what I even told Daniel, is if, you did something and you utilize that blanket, right? And command center, and this is a little bit ballsy, but if command center is by your house and you want law enforcement to leave, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go and plant something in an opposite direction from where you're at to get law enforcement away from your property. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened. That's just 100% speculation. That's why I don't even want to put this man's name out there. But if it was planted, I can see that being a reason why, because it was in the complete opposite direction of where this man lives. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, it must have been Daniel. He planted it or something of that nature because his uncle lives not too far away from there. I don't think it was planted. I don't think you go and plant something in the direction of a property that you have access to, which, by the way, was searched. All right. But so that's my thoughts. And that, if it was a neighbor, it would be very difficult to determine, where they were during the time of the incident, given the fact, or if they were involved, given their phone, because they live in the area, it would be unrecognizable, undetectable, whether or not his phone was at home or at Daniel's or just down the street. There's a lot of things that would happen that would make it plausible. Doesn't mean it's probable, but it would make it possible. Not even plausible, possible. It's not something that I could say, all right, like everything else, like, oh, well, with Malaya, she, how does she contact somebody? When does she make these plans? When does she do this? When does she do that? With this guy, I can't deduce it out as a possibility is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying it is a possibility or that it's a probability, just that it's a possibility, because I cannot deduce it. I can't go in there and say, well, they would have figured him out because of this. They would have figured him out because of that. I can't do it with this guy. He lives in the area. So the cameras that they did get, from the surrounding area leading into it, he wouldn't have gotten captured if he was from out of the area driving in, because he was already there. He resides there. So, I can't deduce him out. Can't rule him out. That's just where I'm at on that guy. On everybody else, Malaya, Daniel, for the most part, I feel confident in deducing almost every possibility resulting in them being involved. Almost, not all. There's still, I still leave room there for the possibility that they did have some sort of involvement. And we just, RCMP is holding some cards close to the chest. They're lying to us or whatever the case may be. I don't give that a 0% chance. I think it's unlikely. I give it a less than 10% chance, but I do think that there's that possibility. All right, I'm going to bring up Barbara Hall here in a second, but first, Sirius Black comes in with $5. Thank you, Sirius. Thank you so much for being here, and hit the like button, subscribe. DTS is the place to be. Thank you. And Miss Hall, how's it going? Welcome back to the show.
Going well. I like your new setup there.
Oh,
Looks
thank
nice.
you. Thank you. It's one I was using a while back. So it's kind of weird. The setup I have with the map and everything else, that was my initial one when I started talking true crime. And then it was this one. And then we went back to it just because we were like hardcore into true crime. But
it stands out. I like it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. How are you doing, Miss Hall?
I'm doing good. I called because I wanted to explain that when my son was missing, we had cadaver dogs, we had horses, we had drones, there was helicopters. He was found 184 yards. I can't help but think that those kids are still out in those woods, because the woods that my son was found in wasn't nothing like what they're showing there.
Yeah, exactly. You make an excellent point. Your son was found 184 yards away. For those that don't know, Ms. Hall, we have a playlist on Timothy Dees. He unfortunately lost his life in 2022, I believe, and some mysteriousness behind it. He went out with a friend of his in a town that was the only person he knew. He ends up calling 911 at 4 a.m. saying that his friend was threatening him, and he's never heard from or seen again. He's a missing person, was missing for 5 months, and then his remains will end up being found just 184 yards away after multiple searches with cadaver dogs as well. Correct?
Yeah, we had horses, helicopters, drones. I mean, and he wasn't found. So if I didn't live that, I wouldn't probably understand this as much, but I know what I had to live and endure. And I know that your body can decompose within 3 days. I've learned all that just from what I've been going through. So and Daniel last night, he seemed like he had it all together. I felt very good about his response. You did a good job on that. And I thought, people see us seeming like we're okay and nothing's bothering us, but they don't see what happens behind the scenes. Like when I'm at home alone and the things you go through, when you're speaking, you're in a fight mode to find answers. So you don't seem to be so emotional.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've talked to Daniel and Janie, and on both of them on 2 separate occasions, separate from each other, have told me of a moment that they've caught Malaya breaking down. And nobody hears about that. Nobody talks about that. Because Daniel here recently told me, he's like, yeah, this is happening. He's like, the one time I saw her break down was this. And then Janie also told me, she's like, after this happened, I think it was the second day or something like that. I think it just hit her and that she caught her crying and breaking down.
There's moments where you're fine, and then all of a sudden you feel like you've been stabbed in the chest, and reality hits. Oh my God, your kid's gone. Yeah, so I understand that, but when you're speaking out to try to get answers, you have to stay strong. So you get in this fight mode. I know I did, and I know everybody doesn't react the same in situations, but I can't help but think that them kids are somewhere still in those woods. It's just my opinion.
Yeah. No, I'm more there with you than any other direction. I just, like I said, I find it very difficult for Malaya to have pulled this off, without Janie or Daniel knowing anything during that moment, and able to also fool law enforcement and everything else in between there. They've brought in lie detector tests or crews. They got 2 separate lie detector examiners and equipment to test multiple people. And I'm right there with you.
People that pass lie detector test are pretty much narcissists. That's why they can pass them. Sorry, it's just my opinion. They don't have any, souls, what I say. Maybe, not trying to offend anybody, but that's what I think.
Right. But 6 people, it's one thing, but 6 people. And then like with Daniel, he had to take 3 of them.
That's why I think that they are being honest.
Yeah, me too.
Because they did pass them.
I think so too. I think it would have been very difficult. And it's not, and to not get an inconclusive, when lie detector tests fail, when they're wrong, it's most likely a false negative or a false lie, where somebody said the truth and the test determined you were lying because you positioned yourself in one way or another, or you sweat, or you moved your finger, or whatever the case may be, right? No. The likelihood of it being the other way around, not even being inconclusive, but all the way to truthful, and 3 different times back to back to back, I find it unlikely. And then you also have the fact that this wasn't, let's just say that Daniel or Malaya had something to do with this. Most of these type of cases, if it was something that resulted in death and they were trying to cover that up, whether that be an accident or something intentional or something out of fear or anger or drugs, those type of incidences all occur. Those are all in the moment type of crimes. Those aren't premeditated to the part where you have somebody planning something out and giving it a lot of forethought. All right, I need to turn my phone off at this time, do this at this time, make sure, there's not a lot of that when it's an accident. It's usually, an accident occurs, somebody lost their cool, somebody's under the influence of something. Either way, it's not something that is happening in the moment. They asked these guys to take a polygraph test, or Daniel offered for it, and they brought in somebody fairly quickly. So where's the time that he had to plan to pass this lie detector test, and how was this planning not found by RCMP when they went through all this technology?
Right. When I was in my 20s, I dated this guy that had to do a polygraph test at his job because somebody had stole some money there.
Uh-huh.
And he passed it. But he's narcissistic too. That's why he's an ex-boyfriend from my 20s. Okay. And I asked him how he did that. And he told me because he put in his head that he thought to himself the whole time he was doing the polygraph that it was somebody else. It wasn't him.
Huh.
And I thought that was very interesting. That was many years ago.
Yeah. I would hope the technology's gotten a lot better than that.
Oh, I'm sure. But like in my case, you got a person that did flunk one, and then you got another person that passed one. But,
yeah,
I really do truly think that maybe them, because I know Timmy was a grown man and these were your little kids, and I know how long it took to find him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. You still there, Barbara? I don't hear anything. I think everything's still good on my end. You must have accidentally dipped out real quick. All right. Yeah, no, I'm still good. I'm still good on my end. My computer's been freezing every now and then. So I'm going to leave you up here, Barbara, but I think you accidentally dropped out. Yes, ma'am. Goes, my question is, do you think Daniel debunked his Janie and Durwood theory that Malaya sent the kids off with when you asked him if he thought she got up without him knowing? I think it was debunked, to be honest with you, but I think there's more to it than just that. I think there's that aspect. There's also, she turned over her phone. She did a bunch of other things as well. And it just, nobody could ever figure anything out with her. You know what I mean? With law enforcement, that is. So I strongly suspect that be the case. We have Lori coming in. Daniel, so do you think the children are alive? I hope they're alive. I think that if they wandered off into the woods and that's what happened, I don't think so. I think if they were abducted, there's obviously that possibility that they could be alive. I don't know. I hope they are. This stuff about Malaya and potentially being, oh, hold on. Hey, Barbara, you back? Check. Test. No. All right. Oh, I think I hear you. All right. Barbara, you there? All right. I'm going to go ahead and remove you, Barbara. If you hear us on the thing, I'm going to remove you real quick, okay? Yeah, I think she's not there at on the deal. But I hope they're alive. Mountain Mama comes in for 31 months as a member. Thank you so much. As a mod as well. It's been a great mod and a member. Hope you're doing well. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Thank you. Appreciate that. Did Daniel say anything about Cody picking up the kids and taking the kids to MB from Malaya? He's not told me anything about that. I've not heard anything of that. Barbara, are you there? I think she's closed that down. All right. But the lie detection questions were only around the unaliving questions. Well, for Daniel, they were. Daniel knows what they asked him. But the RCMP documents indicate that Malaya's line of questioning was more set around around the disappearance and the murder of the kids. And the death of the kids. So I think they asked her some different questions as well. I would like to speak with Malaya about that and ask her herself, hey, what questions did they ask you? Were they the same? But Yeah, no, I understand that the lie detection were only there.
What is the deal?
There you go, Barbara. Can you hear me? Barbara, can you hear me? I hear you, Barbara, but I don't think you can hear me. I think you have to mess with the you're gonna have to deal with the audio side if you can hear this on record. Yeah. I don't think you can hear me. And so I'll answer a couple more questions. So Janie goes, they were the same questions for me. I get it. I understand that, Janie, that they were the same questions. But the reason why they were the same questions for you is because if you're looking at this from the law enforcement point of view, my questions, if I was investigating this crime, my questions for you, Janie and Daniel, would probably surround around either the death of the kids as well. I don't see that you have much of a motive for, kidnapping them. I don't think they've gone through all of your financial records. They've gone through a bunch of things, right? Daniel's phone records, the whole 9 yards. And so they're probably thinking, all right, if Daniel's involved, his involvement would have to be something around or surrounding around, the death and disappearance, or the death and murder of the kids. If Janie's involved, she's probably surrounded about the cover-up, assisting Daniel. Now, you're probably not going to ask the same questions to Cody. You're not going to ask the same questions to Malaya, especially with the amount of finger pointing that, maybe not finger pointing, but the amount of attention that Daniel has brought in the direction of Malaya as far as possibly, wanting the kids to be with native CPS versus Canadian CPS. I would assume that they would have navigated those questions around that, but we only know just yours and Daniel's at this point. We really don't know what everybody else was asked. I wish we could figure out that answer, though. I think Belinda, Cody's mom, is usually in the live chat sometimes when we're talking about the case. Hopefully, if you're here, I'd love to get a response if you know what they asked, your son, if it was still around those questions. Let me see if I can bring Barbara back on. Barbara, can you hear me?
A response if you know what they asked, your son.
Can you hear me, Barbara? I think I hear myself.
Let me see if I can bring Barbara back on. Barbara, can you hear me? A response if you know what they asked.
No, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Barbara?
No.
All right, you're gonna have to. I'm gonna. What you need to do is you need to check the audio, but it's okay, Barbara. We're gonna probably call it a show here pretty soon. But I want to thank you so much. I know we got to cover the Timothy D's case again. I'm looking to do that sometime extremely soon. But yeah, I mean, I am assuming that the questions from Malaya were different. And I'm also assuming that the reason why that they were aligned in the manner that they were because of the investigation that they did. They had their phones, they had their banking statements, location, stuff like that. So they probably were deducing it down to a couple things, right? And asking questions based on that deduction. Kind of similar to like what I do when I deduce things. I'm going to answer just a few more questions. We're going to do away with the calls for now. I enjoyed it, so we'll probably be doing this more often. Daniel, do you think a plan could have been made when M was doing laundry separate from D? You see, if we were to boil this down, right? Let's break this down from that point of view. Malaya goes out there to plan. She's there. She tells, her mom, Cindy, hey, we need to do something. I want to, I want to take off and I want to get away from Daniel and whatever the case may be, right? Why make the kid that disappears the one that Daniel doesn't have custody of or any parental rights to? Making Meadow disappear and then her taking off with her two kids would make way more sense. way more sense, in my opinion, than if if she wanted to do it that way. Right now, let's just say they made this plan 9 o'clock in the morning after Janie's already, gone laying down. That's when these kids have disappeared, right? How does Malaya notify her family that's the time it's okay to go into the house? Because remember, she stayed in bed. Meadow stayed on top of her. So how does she know what time to go into the house? That's a very dangerous thing to do. If Daniel's awake, you know what I mean? And she just walks into the house, that follows a lot of things. It spoils a lot of things. Like, what are you doing here? That can cause a confrontation. There's a lot of things going on there. So how does Malaya, notify Cindy or whoever that it's time? Come pick up the kids. Come inside the house, put on their jacket, and exit the house. I just don't understand how she does that after 9 o'clock in the morning. Because again, it's 9 o'clock. It's not 5 o'clock. It's not 4 o'clock. It's not 3 o'clock when you expect people to be asleep. Right? Where you can just say, all right, I'm going to leave these blinds open. If you see the blinds open, I'm awake and Daniel's asleep. If you see him closed, don't come in. It's not that time. It's 9 o'clock and she's not gotten out of bed because Meadow's on her arm. So it's not like she went out there and created a signal. She was in bed. So what kind of plan could she have devised? And I mean, there's a lot of other parts to it other than just the elaborate kidnapping aspect. Where do the kids go from there? Who do they contact? Who do they have that's in agreement to watch the kids during this time? How do they get the kids there without being seen on any of the cameras that are out of the area? Right? Because there were some cameras that were positioned in several different places and kind of a distance away. I mean, they weren't close. I think there were businesses and stuff that were a bit of a ways, but you would have had to have passed them if you're coming from out of the area. So how did they elude that? Especially like Cindy, who lived far away. I believe she lived like 45 minutes to an hour away. How did they not get seen on any cameras from any ring, any stores, gas stations, traffic cameras on any traffic lights from, I'm assuming there's at least one or two. Now, I don't know if they have any cameras out there in the middle of nowhere, probably not, but not one camera, not one thing captured them driving 45 minutes to an hour away, or going back, because they'd had to go back and then come back. Right. So, I mean, I don't see it. I see the suspicion from the behavior. I just don't see the evidence connected to it. I'm going to take one last call before we call it a show. Teresa, you jumped in at the last moment. Teresa, what's going on? You're on the show.
Wow, lucky me. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you for doing the show. I think for your opinions. I watch all the different podcasts because I think it's very important to get all aspects, all opinions. The thing is sometimes, it gets a little bit carried away. But anyways, I have my theory, and it's, again, my opinion. We know that Malaya was talking to friends and family about how unhappy she was, etc., for the prior weeks. I think somebody started talking to her and say, "Well, what's stopping you from leaving?" And maybe what was stopping her from leaving was having a roof over her head, having we'll say a spouse, somebody to take care of her financially, emotionally, and most importantly, help her take care of her kids. Because I do think she had a problem handling 3 kids on her own. So in her head, maybe she's thinking, "Oh, geez, I'm staying because I can't. What am I going to do? Be a single mother, 3 kids? I can't handle these 3 kids." And then they say, "Okay, you know what, Malaya? we have families that will take care of them. You can have meadow, and you say there's
And
there's no criminal act. Is it a criminal act if a mother willingly gives over her children to somebody or to put in care? So I think maybe
I don't think there's a criminal act, but I don't think you bring in cadaver dogs if you know that.
that's okay. My story was getting a little bit skewed here, but I think I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I think they brought in the cadaver dogs. Could it be something like we have to do this before because they did say we have to visit all avenues before we can move forward in this investigation. Is it possible to have a judge sign off on something? He would want to say, okay, did you exhaust all of your resources in this theory? Did you exhaust it in this theory? Because we will not go forward and sign off on certain things. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Right.
It could have something to do, with some type of procedures that must be followed, right?
I'm not necessarily certain there's a standard operation of procedures for bringing in a cadaver dog when you have evidence that's leading you somewhere else. So if they truly believe, and they being law enforcement, that there was some sort of indication that the kids were somewhere else, we would probably not see cadaver dogs. We would see warrants being filed for phones, for was it
Maybe
advanced call advanced timing records for their locations and their phones and their phone records and call history on their phones, that they would have had no information and no knowledge that they got. This happened, like, for instance, in the Brian Koberger case. On December 23rd, they did all these things for his historical data and everything else. Now, his searches, they had to wait for his phone to get in, but his locations and things of that nature were all done ahead of time without his knowledge or anything like that. And I would assume that would have been taken precedent. And if he had some sort of evidence that they were located somewhere else, I just strongly doubt that you're bringing in cadaver dogs and exhausting the resources, because these dogs aren't just exhausting resources financially. You're also taking them away from other crimes that they could be searching out there for. And so it's probably not likely that they would be brought in as a means to move forward. Most likely, and like I mentioned before, when you have cadaver dogs, it's because of one of two reasons. Either they believe that the kids are out there, or they have no other option. Nothing else has panned out. They've searched into Malaya. They looked into Daniel. They looked into Janie. They looked into Cody. And they looked into probably some other folks that were in the area, maybe some registered sex offenders that may be in the area, and those type of things. And all of those avenues have exhausted. Now the only thing you have left is coming back with the cadaver dogs. And it might be a combination of the two, where they've exhausted most means of investigative means and they're left with limited options. And so they're going with what's most logically left. In my opinion, I just strongly think that it's unlikely that they would bring in cadaver dogs from all over the place that could be assisting in other crimes where they could be utilized just to cross some T's and dot some I's on something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But I think they brought in cadaver dogs so they can say 100% we've done everything we can in our power. We're going to eliminate that. We're going to eliminate that whole scenario. Now we're going to put all of our forces on the other two scenarios or three, whatever the scenarios these RCMP have in their heads.
Well, I don't even think this is going to be the last time we see cadaver dogs out there. You know, I was listening to a former RCMP investigators talk on Banfield, I believe, and they were bringing up, cadaver dogs being out there and stuff like that. It may have been actually, I think it was a CVC. And he was talking about how this is just the natural progression. You bring in the first dogs, the air scenting dogs, then you bring in the cadaver dogs a little bit later. And
5 months later?
Well,
5 months later,
if they're buried and or if they're underwater, it might take some time for the smell to come up. Yes, and so you want to maximize the time that you have out there. So you're going to send them out there at the time when, because if they would have sent them out there 2 months ago or 3 months ago, well, then you would have to corral them up again and send them out again. And it's just not feasible, in my opinion, when you look at the logistics and all the other crimes that are being committed and the workload that these dogs have and the resources that you have. And so you're going to maximize that opportunity by sending them out there at the time when, if they're buried, if they're underwater and inside of a container of some sort, the dogs most likely can now pick it up. Now, that's as weird as it is, and this is what the retired RCMP investigator was talking about, the dog handler, that they'll probably bring him in another 5 or 6 months, and then a couple of, maybe even a year after that, because the smell may actually, because there's different smells that happen at different times of decomposition and stuff like that. So, and again, if they're underneath the ground and buried or in a container under the water, it may take some time. And so I think that's probably more so the reason why it took them 5 months, is to allow for that smell to rise if it was out there. And again, he even said it himself, it's not 100% accurate. And so they're more than likely going to keep coming back, in the future as well.
I can just only imagine what everybody involved is going through. If the public, this is driving me crazy. I think about it every day, and I keep flip-flopping my scenarios. The more information I get, depending which channel I listen to, because I found when you listen to one channel and only one channel, it's almost like a brainwashing. If someone's repeating something over and over in your ear, you're eventually going to repeat it back and start believing it. So it's very important for everybody to get a wide variety of opinions, get a wide variety of the different journalisms, whether it's written or YouTube, because the more we have to be like a team here, and we have to do the how they have the conferences, what's that called, a mind.
Right. Well, I mean, to me, I think at the end of the day, what would probably be the best avenue is to go based on what it is that law enforcement have put out. Because one of the things that I have mentioned, and I mentioned this last night as well, is like, a lot of people will say, well, this doesn't add up, or that doesn't add up, or this theory don't add up.
I heard that, yes, and that was really, really fantastic comment that you made. 1 and 1 can't make 2 if you don't have 1 and 1.
Yeah, we don't know all the components. There's no way anything's going to add up, because we just don't know. Law enforcement, though, and they may not have all the components, but they have all the components that are available. We don't have all the components that are available. And so when it comes to that scenario, what I do is, that's why I follow them, because I would have been with everybody else, week 1, week 2. Hey, kids weren't at school for 2-3 days. That's weird. Let's start looking at the parents. Hey, mom took off. That's weird. I would have been there. I would have been standing with everybody else. But as information starts to come out, and that's why I follow law enforcement. That's what this channel does here, is we follow, what they're doing and what they're not doing. Now, we do understand that in certain scenarios that sometimes some things are kind of weird. Like we just spoke with Barbara Hall, mother of Timothy Dees. In that case, there's some weird stuff going on, but we can pinpoint it. For instance, the person that we suspect might be involved in that crime says that he was arrested at 9 a.m. The cops in the area say they have paperwork that says 9 a.m. What they didn't account for is that we have screenshots of a text conversation that he had with somebody else asking for money so he doesn't go to jail. So the reason they arrested him was because he was involved in a gas drive-off. And that conversation happened at 10. And then we got a picture from law enforcement when they arrested him, putting him in handcuffs. The moment they put him in handcuffs, and lo and behold, when we look at the information, it was taken at 10:05 a.m. So they're lying, and we got proof.
Wow.
And that right there is something real. That's concrete. That is suspicious. There's something there right there. Now, with Daniel Malay and everything else, there's suspicion, but there's nothing like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you definitely have to go with the evidence. I 100% agree. 100%. But like I said, I keep flip-flopping. Maybe I shouldn't even watch these darn videos because and just go with the evidence. Because in the end, it's going to go to court, We have to be the jury and we have to be given the evidence because that's what could be brought to court. So
Exactly.
thank you for your time. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad I brought you on as the last one. You have a great night. We're going to do this again. So hopefully we'll hear from you in the future.
Thank you. Have a great night, guys. Be safe.
You too. You too. All righty, guys. I'm going to make sure that I got nothing saved. I got Babbles and Dolls coming in as a newest member. Pickle Toes Grandma says again, who came and picked up the kids' belongings? All right. So that was RCMP. They had came in and they had picked up the Jack and Lily's belongings from Daniel. And that was around the time that they took his phone and around the time that he did the polygraph. And they picked up the clothes and they asked where they were going with it. And they said, going back to Malaya. And they're like, where's that? And they said, none of your business. It's basically what they told Daniel and Janie about that. Again, that was very early on in the investigation. I want to say before the lie detector test. So there was probably some hostility there between them. And again, I think Daniel was probably high on their priority list as far as suspects go very early on. I don't think he's there anymore. No, investigators took them, and it was about a month ago. Really? Okay, well, there you go. Janie's here to correct this. So it was about a month ago when they came in. From what I understand, though, Janie, they did say that they were kind of rude about when you asked where they were going, right? And so there it is. Let's see. All right. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me tonight. I'll be back on tomorrow night, probably about the same time. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring a notification. You send me a picture. Let me see real quick. Because I remember you sending me something, but just resend that to me and I'll bring it up on the next time, Janie. But please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. And of course, you're welcome. You guys have a great night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.